Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to learn the 1 to 4 player game, Pergola, designed by Michal Golebiowski and Przemek Wakoyek, and published by Rebel Studio, who helped sponsor this video. You found the perfect place to set up a new garden and fill it with a variety of flowers, plants, and animals that will thrive under your care as you compete to create the most impressive arrangement. So, join me at the table, and let's learn how to play. To set up, put this token holder in the center of the play area with the various game pieces arranged within it as you like, or following the suggested layout found in the rulebook. Nearby, also set this leaf board, shuffling these leaf tokens into 3 equal randomized stacks that you'll place onto the leaf board like this. Within reach of the players, you'll also put this action board and the tool holder. Make sure the action board is flipped to the side that shows 4 uniquely colored tools along its left edge. The tokens within this area of the tray make up the 4 groups of colored tools, and depending on your number of players, you'll only use certain colors. You'll find a reminder of this on the edge of the action board here. Only use the tools with a number showing on their colored banner that match your number of players. We'll assume we have 2 players in this video, so we'll only use the green shovels and orange hose. Shuffle each type separately and put them into their own slots of the holder. Then draw 4 green shovels, 1 at a time, and place them above the 4 spaces of the action board, filling them in from right to left, so there's a tool above each one. Now find the pond board and these 2 sizes of dragonfly pieces. Every dragonfly has a symbol in its center, and you'll group these by their symbols. If you have 4 players, you'll stack the pieces with matching symbols on top of each other, putting the larger dragonfly onto a stack of smaller ones. But if you have 2 or 3 players, as we do here, you'll remove 1 green dragonfly from each of the stacks, returning them back to the box. And this means you'll end up with just 1 large dragonfly stacked on 1 smaller one. Then randomly put each stack onto its own bright circular water lily of this board. With the lily pond complete, you'll now set it into the center of the token tray. Now have each player collect a garden, pergola, and cascade board arranged like this, along with a scoring board. Each person also receives a pot, which is a handy place to store these other player components between games, which include a frog, birdhouse, 2 water drops, and 4 honeypots. The honeypots have a full and an empty side, and you'll put all 4 of them onto this bench of your pergola, ensuring that their empty sides are face up. Then add your birdhouse and frog anywhere within your garden, putting your 2 water drops at the top of your cascade in the area here. The person who last worked in a garden is picked to take the first turn of the game, or you might go with the most colorfully dressed, or just pick someone randomly. And that's the setup. In Pergola, you and the other players will be growing plants and attracting insects to your gardens, which will allow you to score points in a variety of ways. Have the most points at the end of the game, and you'll win. Starting with the first player and going in clockwise order around and around the table, players will take turns. And after every player has had 15 turns, the game will end. On your turn, you'll perform 4 steps, starting with picking a tool. Here, you choose any one of the 4 tools by the action board and collect it, along with the tokens it shows on its handle, which you'll find in the tray. For example, this shows a blue hollyhock and a lavender leaf. Set the tool near your garden board for now, and then in any order, assign your collected pieces to your garden board, which is the second step of your turn, known as enriching your garden. We're going to learn how you place each of the different types of tokens and their various benefits later, but for now, just know I've placed these correctly. Then it's time for the third step of your turn, where you'll look at the space of the action board below where you took your tool from and perform the action it shows there. In this way, the tool you take not only determines which tokens you'll collect and place, but also the action you'll perform that turn. We'll come back and learn the various actions later, but after resolving your action, you move to the 4th and final step of your turn, known as cleanup. Here, as the arrows remind us, you'll slide any of the above tools over to the right as necessary to ensure any gap is now above the far left action. Then you draw the next green shovel tool from the holder and put it into that empty space. The tool you collected that turn, you'll then set into an open space for it within your personal pot. There are 15 spaces here, matching the 15 turns you'll take during the game. So once all of these spaces have been filled, the game is almost over. Either way, after one player has finished their turn, the next player in clockwise order takes their turn, picking and resolving a tool and performing the other steps of a turn. In this way, as turns go on, eventually all of the green shovels will have been taken from this tray. When that happens and you need to draw replacements, you'll take them from the next tool set, which in our two-player game are these. You'll also find this order shown on the action board based on these arrows. So, as we saw, first green shovels are removed, and once they're all gone, in a two-player game, you then begin removing the orange hoe tools. Now, if you had 3 players, remember the purple rakes would also be in the tray. So again, you'd start by removing green shovels, and then after they're all gone, you'd instead start drawing the purple rakes. And then after those, you would then draw the orange hoes. With that, we now know the steps of a turn and the overall flow of the game. So next we need to go through each type of token you might receive during a turn, see how they're placed, and how they can earn you points. Just keep in mind, you only earn points at the very end of the game. But as I explained, each type of piece, I'll also set up examples like you might have at the end of the game so you can see how each type of piece scores. To begin, let's learn about Hollyhocks. These come in 3 different colors: blue, yellow, and red. The first time you gain one of those colors, place it anywhere in your garden. If you gain another hollyhock of the same color later, it must be added directly above your previously gained one. If you gain a different color, you place it separately, and any new tokens in its color must be placed above it. In this way, at most, you will have 3 columns of hollyhocks, 1 for each color. And you will never have more than 1 color within each of these columns. At the end of the game, you'll score points for your hollyhocks as shown on this section of your scoring board. As it indicates, you gain points based on the sets of differently colored hollyhocks you have. Each set of 3 different colors is worth 6 points, a set of 2 different colors is worth 3 points, and a token that's not part of any set is worth 1 point. So if I had these hollyhocks at the end of the game, the bottom 2 rows of 3 different colors are worth 6 points each. This row of 2 different colors is worth 3 points, and this is 1 point, and so is this. All right, let's look at something else you can collect: butterflies, represented by these pieces. When you gain a butterfly, you add it to any one of your hollyhocks that doesn't already have one on the space marked for it. If you have several spaces to choose from, pick any one you like, and you don't have to fill these in any particular order. So I might put my next butterfly here, the next one here, and so on. If you gain a butterfly but don't have any hollyhocks or open spaces for it, just set it somewhere on its own where it will just fly around. When you gain a space for it later, it won't automatically go there. There's a special action you need to resolve to move it to another piece, but we'll learn about that later. Looking at our scoring board, here we see how butterflies are scored at the end of the game. Each is worth a certain number of points based on the height of the hollyhock it is resting on. These 2 butterflies on the lowest level of hollyhocks is worth 1 point each as it shows here. These on the second and third level are worth 2 points each, and any butterflies on the third or higher levels are worth 3 points each. So when placing butterflies, you'll want to put them on the highest spaces possible. However, once you've added pieces to your garden, you will not be able to move them to other pieces later without using a special action. So in other words, if you later had higher spaces you could now move a butterfly to, you couldn't just bump it up to a higher space without using a special action we'll learn about later. Here we have the symbols for magnolias, and these come in 2 types. This symbol for a single branch, and this for a double. The first Magnolia token you gain can be put anywhere in your garden, but each new branch must be added above an open pink Magnolia board already on your board. So the next branch I get could go here or here. If I get another one later, this could go here, here, or here. In other words, all Magnolias you gain will be part of the same tree. At the end of the game, each Magnolia piece, whether it's a single or double branch, scores a number of points based on its height. Pieces on any of the first 3 levels are worth 1 point each. So here we have 4 pieces and each of these are worth 1 point. Any pieces on the 4th level are worth 2 points each, and we have 2 of those here. And any at a level of 5 or more are worth 3 points each. So these 3 pieces are each worth 3 points. All right, next we're going to learn about collecting these ladybugs. Each Magnolia piece has a space for a ladybug, and when you gain one, you put it on any Magnolia piece in your garden that doesn't already have one on it. These don't have to be added in any particular order. You can pick any open space as you gain ladybugs. And if you don't have an open space for a ladybug you've gained, put it anywhere on your board where it will stay until we learn about the action that allows you to move it to an open ladybug space you might gain later. At the end of the game, this area helps you score your ladybugs. It tells us that each one at the same level is worth a number of points based on how many other ladybugs are also at that level. Here it's saying if you only have one ladybug within a level of your Magnolia tree, it is worth 1 point. We see that here, so this ladybug is worth 1 point. Then it shows if you have 2 ladybugs at the same level, they are each worth 2 points. So both of these are worth 2 points each for a total of 4. This is indicating that if you have 3 or more ladybugs all at the same level, they are each worth 3 points. So here, each of these are worth 3 points for a total of 12 points. In this way, it doesn't matter how high or low your ladybugs are, but instead, you want as many as possible within the same row together. Now it's time to learn about buttercups, which come in small pink or large blue pieces. Anytime you gain these, add them to your pergola board above your beehive in any way you like. When scoring buttercups at the end of the game, you'll earn 3 points for each pair of small and large buttercups you have. So if this was the end of the game, I'd earn 3 points for this pair, another for this pair, and nothing for this unpaired buttercup. Okay, moving on, we come to this symbol for gaining a lavender leaf. When you collect one, add it anywhere within your garden, and as soon as you have a pair of them, put them side by side like this, and then you have an immediate choice to make. You must either add one of these lavender flowers to it, which you collect from the tray, or one of these small dragonflies. Dragonflies come in 3 sizes, small, medium, and large, but you may only attract a small dragonfly with a pair of lavender leaves. We'll see why you might choose one of these over the other when you create a lavender leaf pair, but just be aware, after you've created one pair, the next leaf you gain will start a new one. And if it gets completed, you'll make the choice of adding a lavender flower or a small dragonfly again, and so on. At the end of the game, each lavender leaf will earn you 2 points, whether it's part of a pair or not. So here I have 7 leaves, which are worth a total of 14 points. We'll learn how lavender flowers can earn you points later, but let's take a moment and see how dragonflies score at the end of the game. Each small one in your garden is worth 1 point, so here I'd gain 2 points total from these. We saw there are also medium and large-sized dragonflies, which begin on the lily pads, and we'll see how they enter your garden later. But at the end of the game, as we see here, each dragonfly you have will be worth a number of points based on its size. 5 points for each large one, 3 points for each medium one, and as we already saw, each small dragonfly is worth 1 point. So here, my dragonflies would give me 5 points, 3 points, another 3 points, and each of these at 1 point each provide a total of 13 points. Next up, let's talk about bees, which you gain from this symbol. When you collect a bee, you place it on any empty bee space, which you'll find on buttercups and lavender flowers. There is room for 1 on small buttercups, and 2 bees on larger ones, and a total of 3 bees can be placed on lavender flowers. If you have no space for a new bee you've just gained, put it anywhere in your garden to fly around until it finds a place to land using an action we'll learn about soon. At the end of the game, you earn points for each piece a bee can land on if all of its bee spaces are completely filled. So a small buttercup earns you 2 points, a medium one earns you 4 points, and filling a lavender flower earns you 8 points. So these bees score nothing at the end of the game since there is still an empty space on their piece. But if this bee was here as well, then these would be worth 8 points. So when placing bees, you might be able to earn more points from larger pieces, but only if you completely fill them in. But that's not all. Any bees taking up spaces on your buttercups are said to be producing honey. And as soon as you have 4 bees anywhere within your pergola board, you pick any one of your empty honey pots to flip over to their filled side. As soon as you have a total of 7 honeybees in this area, you'll flip a second honey pot over. And if you manage to get 9 honeybees here, you'll pick and flip over a third honey pot. But no matter how many more bees you might gain, you'll never flip all 4 over. You'll find a reminder of this here on the board itself, where it shows how many bees are required to fill your first, second, and third honey pot. Filled honey pots will give you additional ways to score points at the end of the game, and we'll go over each of them later. With that, we've covered most of the pieces you can gain and place in your garden from tools you might collect. I'm going to save one type to explain later, but remember, the symbols on your chosen tools are just one of the benefits you'll gain during your turn. After, you also resolve the action of the space you took your tool from. So in this example, the player would now resolve this action. But let's go through each of these and learn how they work, starting with this action known as the insect flutter. Notice the 2 times indicator, which means you actually perform 2 insect flutters. With each one, you move any ladybug, bee, or butterfly from wherever it is on your boards to any other valid space for it. We've already seen the valid spaces each type of insect can be placed on, so as an example, we might use an insect flutter action to move a bee not currently on a space to the one here. That said, you can also move an insect already on a space to a different valid one. And I'll point out, we saw earlier that bees in this area help you fill honey pots. But I should point out, if you move bees out of this area to the point that you have fewer than the amount required for the pot you flipped, it still stays on its flipped and filled side. You already collected that honey and don't suffer any negative effects. That said, if we wish to fill a second pot, we will need to get a total of 7 bees back here at some point, either by gaining new ones to put onto our buttercups or by using future flutter actions to move bees back here. Here's another example to be aware of. When resolving your 2 insect flutters, although they must each use a different insect, you resolve them one at a time. So I could use my first flutter to move a bee to this buttercup. I now have enough here to flip a honey pot. Then after, I could move a different bee from here back to this lavender flower, refilling all of its spaces again. I should also make it clear, insect flutters only move bees, ladybugs, and butterflies as this icon shows. These actions do not move dragonflies. And when resolving this action, although you can do it 2 times, you can also choose to perform just 1 or even no insect flutters. You don't have to move an insect if you don't want to. But with that understood, let's now learn this next action referred to as bird flight and leaves. You'll find this same icon on this leaf board as a reminder that taking this action allows you to collect the top leaf from any of these 3 piles. You are not allowed to examine any of the other tokens here except for the topmost ones of each stack, but I'm going to show you some of the examples of what you'll find here. Leaves will either show a ladybug, bee, or butterfly on their own or paired with a single insect flutter. These gain you the related insect to put in your garden in a valid space or just flying around if you don't have a space. These do the same but also allow you to perform a single insect flutter with any insect. It doesn't have to be the same type of insect the token provided you with. So taking this leaf adds a butterfly to my garden, and then I might use this flutter to move the bee here to this space, but you can skip the insect flutter if you want. After resolving the leaf, you then add it to your birdhouse. Leaves come in 5 different colors, and at the end of the game, as you're reminded of here, you'll earn 1 point for each color of leaf you've managed to collect. So if I had all these leaves at the end of the game, I'd earn 1, 2, 3, 4 points for having 4 unique colors. I'll also mention in the rare event that there are no leaves left on this board when you would need to gain one from this action, you instead just collect either one bee, butterfly, or ladybug from the supply. Okay, with that understood, let's hop over to this action known as the frog jump. When you perform this for the first time, you'll move the frog in your garden to any water lily in the pond. Once here, when you use a frog jump action in the future, you must move your frog from the lily it is on to an adjacent one, which is any that shares a side with the one you are currently on. So I could later jump from here to any one of these lilies except for this one. Now, when you land on a lily that shows an insect, you take that type of insect from the supply and add it to your garden into any valid space for it, which could include flying around in your garden if you don't have a space for it yet. Water lilies with a dragonfly are a little different. You'll notice these show a symbol in their center, and to land on one of their spaces, you must have 4 of the items that they show already in your garden. In other words, to land on this lily, you must already have 4 buttercup pieces of any size in your garden. Here you need 4 lavender leaves. To land on this lily, you must have 4 hollyhocks of any color. And this lily requires 4 magnolia pieces, and they can be any combination of single or double branches. And be aware, you can use your first jump to land on one of these lilies as long as you satisfy its requirements. After entering a dragonfly lily, you collect the largest dragonfly piece that remains there and add it to your garden. Large and medium dragonflies are placed in any open area of your garden, and as we learned at the end of the game, medium ones will be worth 3 points and large ones are worth 5. Over the course of the game, you can have more than one type of dragonfly in your garden, but each must have a unique requirement in its center. That means, since I have this buttercup dragonfly already, I could not gain this one later. If a lily has a dragonfly you already collected, or none at all, you can still jump to it, but you don't collect anything. This brings us to the last type of action we have to go over, the water drip. Here, you pick either of your water drops on the Cascade section of your board to move down a blue stream path to the next water drop symbol it shows. At the start of the game, you'll have 3 paths you can follow. So I might move down to here, or go this way to here, or perhaps to here. Let's assume I went down the central stream, arriving at this spot. The droplet space you land on will be touching a rock, and you now gain the insect showing on that rock to put into your garden. So in this case, a butterfly. The next time I use the water drip action, I can move either of these drops again, but just be aware, 2 drops can never share the same space. So if I moved this drop, I could not go down this path. I'd have to go either here or to here. Now that said, if I chose to move this drop instead, going here and gaining a bee for my garden, the next time I use this action, I could move this drop along the same path in order to gain a butterfly. Water drops can share the same path, just not the same space. If a water drop is moving from any one of these 4 spaces, it will arrive at the bottom, and you must place it onto any one open water droplet shown there. After, you will gain a butterfly, ladybug, or bee from the supply, and then, as we'll see, you'll also score the bonus points shown by the droplet at the end of the game. This bonus means every dragonfly in your garden at the end of the game, no matter its size, earns you 1 additional point. This bonus means you gain 2 points for every honeypot you have flipped to its filled side at the end of the game. And finally, this bonus earns you 1 point for every set of butterfly, ladybug, and bee in your garden, no matter where they are at the end of the game. So if my board looked like this at the end of the game, these 3 insects would count as 1 set, these 3 would count as another, and so on. The quickest way to calculate how many sets you have is to figure out which insect you have the least of. That will be the most sets you created. So if you have 0 ladybugs, that's the insect you have the least of, and that means you have 0 sets. If you had 5 bees, 4 butterflies, and 3 ladybugs, ladybugs are the insect you have the least of, and you have 3, so that means you'd have 3 sets. So your water drop on this bonus in that case would score you 3 points at the end of the game. Now remember, water drops cannot be in the same space. So if you get a second one to the bottom, it must go by a different end game bonus, and you'll also gain an insect from here as well. If you have both your water drops at the bottom, each time you would need to resolve the water drip action again, you instead just gain a butterfly, ladybug, or bee for your garden. All right, we've covered a lot of pieces and placements and points, but I did save one piece for us to go over right now. So next, let's learn about lanterns. These come in 4 different types, and when you see a lantern on a tool you've taken, you collect the matching type from the supply. You then put it anywhere in your garden with the side showing an icon face up. Each lantern provides you with a one-time bonus you can choose to perform anytime it would apply during your turn. After resolving its effect, flip it face down to show it can't be used again. You can even use a lantern on the same turn you gained it, and even more than one lantern during the same turn. So let's go through these and see how they work. After performing and resolving a water drip action, you can then use this lantern to perform a second water drip right away, either on the same or a different water drop. In a similar way, after performing and resolving a frog jump action, this lets you perform an extra frog jump afterwards. If any effect causes you to collect a butterfly, ladybug, or bee, you can resolve this lantern to immediately collect and place a second insect of the same type. So if I had just gained this ladybug, flipping this lantern would provide me with a second ladybug. This lantern is a bit different. After gaining and placing the items on a chosen tool, you can use this to ignore the action you would normally perform after and instead use one of the other 3. So normally I would perform a water drip action, but I could flip this and instead resolve 2 insect flutters. With that, we've gone over all the ways you can gain, place, and use pieces in your garden, and that means you also fully understand how to resolve anything that might happen during your turn. Turns will be taken in clockwise order around and around the table until each player has resolved 15 turns. This means everyone's flower pots will be filled with the 15 tools they collected. The tool holder will also be empty at that time as well. Now each person takes a sheet from this pad and records their scores, following all the scoring steps we previously learned about, except for one we still have to go over, the honeypots. Remember, you only earn points from honeypots you have flipped to their filled side. And also remember, at most, you'll only be able to flip 3 of the honeypots during the game, but I'm going to flip all of them as I describe how they work. This one earns you 1 point for every butterfly anywhere in your garden, even if it's just flying around. The same goes for this honeypot, except you gain 1 point for every ladybug you have. This honeypot gives you 1 point for each lantern in your garden, no matter which side they're flipped to, and this gives you 1 point for every 2 leaves you've collected, no matter what colors they are. Points you gain from your honeypots are totaled and placed here. Once everyone has totaled all of the points they've earned from the various ways you can score points, the player with the most points wins. And in the case of a tie, the tied players share the victory. I'll also point out the back of the rulebook provides a handy summary of a player's turn and various effects and bonuses you might encounter if you need reminders. I also thought I should point something out, not specifically covered by the rules, but perhaps worth considering. The symbols showing on the topmost tools in the holder can be seen, but players aren't meant to slow the game down by considering what tools will be coming out next when they refill the action board at the end of a turn. These are truly meant to be random, so if it helps, you can also make a point of drawing the backmost tool instead, or randomly drawing from within the middle. Another option is to simply turn the holder around so the pieces are leaning towards the players, and then draw from the side that you can't see. Now, this is not a crucial consideration either way, but it's something I thought I would mention in case you or your group of players think it could affect your group's gameplay. Also be aware there are rules included for solo play where you'll attempt to complete various achievements over the course of several games in an effort to enter the 1,000 point club by the end. But those rules I'll leave for you to discover on your own. Otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play Pergola. If you have any questions at all about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notification anytime we post a new video. And if you'd like to support us directly, you can join our Patreon team, which I'll have linked below. But until next time, thanks for watching.